Okay, this is the control panel for the Magnum inverter. Turn that on, let's see. So you turn your charger on and off. This usually isn't blinking, but when I unhooked it last, it stayed blinking because it was in this error state, not really error state, but the status state of having reached maximum charge time. So this is just blinking. Once you connect back to shore power, I expect that to go off without issue. And then when you have shore power, this will be lit up. This power LED, the fault one only lights if you have a fault. The charger you can turn on and off via this button, but that one you may or may not have on depending on if you need to be charging or not. And then if you're inverting, this one will be on. So basically, to turn on the inverter, you just press this button. It came on, the microwave is now on. And so this is now telling us some basic stuff. Like the DC voltage is 13.6 volts. You will learn kind of what voltages mean what, and it's pulling 7 amps DC right now to do the inverting. And it's pulling so much because I have a couple fans on and some lights. You'll see if I turn this light off, it'll probably drop down to 6. Yeah, so it kind of is right there at the cusp of 6, 7. I've got some favorites already set up in here, so you press this favorites button, and some of these buttons you have to press in kind of hard. So this is the amps in and out. This is measured across that shunt. So right now there's no amps coming in and out because the solar is probably keeping up with it. This is the battery state of charge, 100%. So you can kind of lean on this and say, yeah, we're at 100% and believe it. But the real way to know your state of charge is by looking at the voltage. So 13.6 as reported at the BMK, so across that shunt. This is your true kind of status of how it's working. This is how many amps are going in and out. So out right now, 6.7 amps because it's negative. So that means those are coming out of the battery pack, and it's bouncing around a little bit as the sun basically comes in and out. And then you got your battery amps for the PT. So this is from the solar controller, the PT100. So it's putting out 5.4 amps. And so the BMK is seeing -1 amp right now. And if we look at this, we're like at 6 or 7 amps total. So 6 or 7 amps are being used to run all the loads. If we look at, this is probably changing because of the sun, but if we look at the BMK, it's only reporting that we're pulling out of the battery pack this kind of 2 amps. And that's because the PT, the solar panels, are putting in 5. So the 5 putting in from the PT minus the 2 from the batteries, including the 2 from the batteries, equals our 5 to 6 that we're pulling out of the system. So that's kind of how that works. The other menu options, you can look at some manuals online that will walk you through all of these, I'm sure much better than I can. When it says press select, that means to push in on this knob, and that will allow you to select things. And so there's a lot of controls in here that don't really know off the top of my head exactly how they all work. I went through all these initially when I first got it to get everything dialed in properly and kind of have set it and forget it. So you press these buttons again to kind of go back out of that particular thing. The only other thing that you will need to know about, I mentioned that it's a hybrid system. So if you have a generator that you're running on and not not shore power, then you can use the generator to supplement the power that the solar system has. So, or the other way around, right? If you're only running a 1,000-watt generator, you can add in the solar, and the solar will help the generator run a larger load than what the generator is rated for, and you can control what how many amps this system will pull from the shore power. And when I say shore power, that means whatever's plugged into the side of the camper, right? So it could be a generator, it could be a pedestal, it could be your neighbor's house. And so the way you do that is you hit setup, and then you come to 03 here, charger setup. I'm going to select that, and then this says AC input amps is equal to 5. So that means right now that that is going to pull a maximum of 5 amps from the shore power. And shore power, again, could be a generator or the pedestal or your neighbor's house. And so that's going to pull a maximum of 5 amps, and that's AC, so that's 120 volt shore power, so 5 amps there. And so you want to adjust this before you hook it up. So if you've got, you're at a friend's house and they've put you on a 10 amp breaker outlet, and there's some other loads on that outlet, or that breaker rather. So because there's other outlets that have some loads on them, like a refrigerator or something, because you're in the garage, you want to dial this back a few amps. And if they say it's only a 10 amp outlet, maybe put this at 7 amps, and you just press that to set it. And so now at most it'll pull 7 amps from the shore power, and so that way you won't trip your friend's breaker. And then also, if you are camping at a campground and you've got only 30 amp service, then you want to dial this back according to what you're going to be using. If I'm on a 30 amp service, so a 30 amp service is only one leg of power, and so it's going to only have a true 30 amps coming in for the whole unit. And your plug adapter will split that across 2 prongs basically of the camper for the 50 amp legs, but you're still only got 30 amps that you're sharing across the 2 legs. And so you want to maybe only pull 15 amps at most on kind of this one inverter side, and then have 15 amps available still to pull the other leg of the camper, which has got like your hot water heater and things like that on it. So you kind of have to balance where you're at and what kind of power you're getting with this control here, to make sure that the inverter charger doesn't pull too much juice basically. And then if you're on a true 50 amp service, you can bump this all the way up to like 50 amps, and then basically it'll have its own leg in full 50 amps to run everything on that side. So if you're on 50 amp power, then you can run that at 50. If you're at 30 amp power, I would say run this at 15 or so. And if you are at a friend's house with a shared outlet, then I would say 7 or maybe even 5 if you want to be extra careful. And so what that'll do for you is just allow you to get some power in to kind of slowly charge your batteries, and it'll not blow the circuit that you're on with your friend's house. So I'll leave that on 5 amps for now, but that is the one thing you kind of have to manage when you go to a new place. And so then you have to, in this one you have to press kind of hard to get it in there. So you've got your charger set up. AGS is an automatic generator starter. You don't have a generator, so that's nothing that you have to worry about. There's the BMK setup. Basically, only thing you had to set in here was how many amp hours your battery bank is. So if you add an extra battery, you'll need to adjust that. And then that's pretty much all there is to that one. And then PT setup, I think, is linked. Yep. So when you go in and set your basically your charger setup, you've got that 1 amp, but you also have different settings for when it cuts off. So your voltage AC, if it gets below 90 volts, which is 120, should be coming in. If it gets below 90, it'll drop out. And I've got a battery custom kind of settings for those lithium batteries. So you don't have to equalize these, so there's not really much to be done here. Usually if everything's going fine, I'm just looking at these favorites, and you know, just going in here and saying, oh, we're pulling how many of our amps, what's the state of charge, and what are our different things. So that's that.